Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating intersection. We're going to look at how an ancient Eastern philosophy actually provides the foundational backbone for one of today's most popular interior design aesthetics. We are talking about the Zen discipline of warm minimalism. Now, it's a concept that sounds beautiful, right? But as you'll see, pulling it off requires a very specific, mindful approach to the spaces we actually inhabit. So let's jump right into it.
Okay, consider the famous Zen koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? You know, you've probably heard this one before, but here's the trick. You aren't actually supposed to logic your way through it. In Zen practice, paradoxical questions like this are specifically designed as tools. They are meant to completely break our deeply ingrained habits of conceptual, logical thinking. They literally force us to stop overanalyzing and just start experiencing. And honestly, that exact shift in mindset is the starting point for everything we're going to unpack today.
Section 1. Origins of Stillness, Roots of Zen. Let's take a quick look back to understand where these profound ideas actually came from. If we follow the lineage of this tradition, Zen, which is a school of Mahayana Buddhism, traces its roots way back to the 5th or 6th centuries CE. An Indian monk named Bodhidharma is believed to have brought his teachings over to China, and there it took root as Chan Buddhism. Fast forward a bit to the 12th and 13th centuries, and this tradition travels over to Japan, which is where it becomes known as Zen. And from the medieval period onward, it doesn't just stay hidden away in monasteries, it profoundly shapes the absolute entirety of Japanese culture. We're talking everything from architecture and poetry to daily life and art. It's really an incredible centuries-long journey of just this single, powerful philosophy.
Section 2. The philosophy of subtraction, removing the clutter. Let's look at the actual mindset this ancient tradition asks of us. At the absolute center of all Zen practice is something called Zazen. This is seated meditation, and it's specifically focused on the cultivation of present moment awareness. You see, Zen points us toward a direct, unmediated experience of the world. It's all about being entirely present with exactly what is happening right now, without filtering it through our complex thoughts or our anxieties. And this focus on the present brilliantly illustrates how Zen fundamentally differs from other traditions. While a lot of schools heavily prioritize intellectual analysis and strict doctrine or heavy scriptural study, Zen turns entirely away from that. It pivots straight toward direct experience and seated meditation. So the crucial takeaway here is that Zen isn't trying to find the ultimate truth by reading about it in a book or debating it. It seeks truth through experiencing it directly. And that emphasis on the immediate and the real over the theoretical is incredibly important for what happens next. Because of that intense focus on direct, mindful experience, Zen aesthetics naturally began to seep into the physical world. By the medieval period, Zen had directly influenced things like the highly choreographed tea ceremony, the really precise art of ikebana, which is flower arranging, as well as garden design and even the sweeping strokes of ink painting. All of these practices became characterized by a deep sense of restraint, asymmetry, and emptiness. They were all about finding profound beauty in entirely unadorned forms. And that brings us to a really cohesive design philosophy. We call it the practice of subtraction. It's the act of removing everything that is not essential until what remains is luminous with meaning. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. In Zen, empty space isn't a void. It isn't missing something. By actively clearing away the clutter and the non-essential, the space that remains actually becomes incredibly full of presence. Section 3. Zen meets warm minimalism. Foundational discipline. So, how exactly does an ancient monastic practice of subtraction end up in our modern living rooms?
Well, Zen gives us this understanding that clarity and spaciousness are actually a kind of fullness. Think of the mind like still water. Only when water is completely undisturbed can it perfectly reflect reality, right? If it's choppy or cluttered with debris, the reflection is totally broken. And guys, the exact same logic applies to a room. When a space is uncluttered, it doesn't feel cold or bare. It feels perfectly present, capable of beautifully reflecting the life that's lived within it.
This is exactly why Zen-influenced interiors feature so few objects. Think of a single piece of pottery on a shelf, a carefully hung scroll painting in an alcove, a low platform bed with unbleached linen. These aren't just arbitrary decorating choices. In warm minimalism that's actually guided by Zen, placing these items is a literal meditative act. Every single object is chosen with extraordinary care. Each thing is there because it has absolutely 100% earned its place in that room. Section 4. Insights for the home. 3 practical lessons. Let's get into the highly specific, practical payoff for your own living space. Let's apply these 3 practical insights right now. First off, remember that empty space is never wasted space. It's literal breathing room for both the physical room itself and for your mind. Second, routine and ritual bring profound depth to ordinary life. Think about the careful way you might fold a blanket, or the focus it takes to make your morning tea, or even just arranging some flowers on a table. When you do those things with present moment awareness, those regular chores become a form of Zen practice. And third, beauty is found in simplicity, not complexity. You really don't need 100 complicated items to make a space feel beautiful.
Honestly, it all comes down to this. A rough wooden bowl, handmade and slightly asymmetrical, holds more presence than 100 ornate objects. I love that. It perfectly distills the beauty of warm minimalism. It embraces the unadorned form. It celebrates the slightly asymmetrical, natural reality of things. One true, simple object grounded in a spacious room is going to speak far louder than a cluttered shelf ever could.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, but I want to leave you with a direct challenge today. Look around the room you are sitting in right now. What non-essential thing can you subtract from your space today? Remember, we aren't just throwing things away to be cold or sterile. We're subtracting the non-essential so that what remains becomes luminous with meaning. Try it out. Find that still water in your own home. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you in the next explainer.